Call this November 13th Commission meeting to order. Commissioner Kepley would you lead the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
First item on our agenda, we have the first reading of ordinance 127, the gross rezone. Is there anyone here to speak of that?
Looks like we're just going from ag to mini-ag. I'd move it.
Second. Moved by Kipley, second by Fishback to approve the first reading of ordinance 127, gross rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First reading passes. She's coming. I'll go track down Max. She's coming.
Okay.
First reading was motion by Kipley, second by Fishback.
Okay.
In the grocery zone.
Okay. And I led the pledge. Yep.
We've got a few minutes, Max, if you wanted to take care of just a couple
Okay,
of your
the
things.
minutes from November 6th general meeting and November 8th canvas meeting.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Fishback, second by Sutton to approve the general minutes for November 6th and the general election canvas minutes for November 8th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Claims, we won't do payroll again.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Kipley to approve claims. All in favor?
Aye.
Both?
We're trying to pay the bills, but the invoice doesn't match what automatically hits encode because
Shannon.
without the interface we have to
Get that
do
out.
the encode. So
I just got a
I'll sit
text
down
link.
with Gary this afternoon to try to get those paid on time because Patty's gone until Thursday.
Okay.
Okay. HR report.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Sutton to approve the HR report. All in favor?
Aye.
The sheriff
Opposed?
report.
I didn't think anybody watched. Motion carries.
The sheriff report.
Move.
Second. Moved by Sutton, second by Fishback to approve the sheriff's report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Each year, the county, school, and city do a resolution for the consolidated equalization for the upcoming year. The county's resolution was in the packet.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Fishback, second by Kipley to authorize the consolidated equalization resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The library agreement from Aberdeen City was in the packet. This is where it's a lump sum $12,000 for the residents. And it's kind of a wash because they give the museum $12,000 and we give the library $12,000.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Sutton to approve the library agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Auditor's report of account.
Move.
Second. Moved by Sutton, second by Fishback to approve the auditor's report of account. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Lease agreement for Plains Commerce Bank.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Fishback, second by Kipley to authorize a lease for Plains Commerce to use Richmond News Camp, I believe, is what the lease was for. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the next item on the agenda. We have Leaf Redinger Helms, change order number 1, landfill cell 3 construction project. Good morning.
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 I know Mike is still on vacation, I think. But I figured I'd stop in and visit the commission a little bit. Project went well, just about wrapped up, just waiting on some electrical items, we had a little delay with Northern Electric getting their power in there, but otherwise, the project went really well. Mike's placed some trash in this new cell.
So what's the change order?
So the change order is a couple different items. On the west slope, we had thought maybe, as part of the design process, we were looking at maybe doing HDP liner on that west slope. There's the sand vein that kind of moves water through underground there, and when we actually dug into that west slope, it kind of petered out from cell 1 into cell 3, and we had the geologists up there, and when we opened that slope up, we felt like we weren't going to need that liner, so we pulled that out of there. There was some little different unit weight of gravity for some of the sand, so that time went down a little bit. Just some as-built to as-built quantity changes. You know, on a big project like this, those can get a little different. And then there's some gravel that we'd like to add around the surface, the access road. And there's some soft spots that showed up when we rerouted the hauler trucks. We'd like to get those addressed a little bit, and then also, you know, maybe shape the road to drain a little different too, now that we're getting up above grade on cell 1 and 2. Tip it out to the north and out to the outside into the liner. Little things like that. And then there's also on the back end, there's the time extension that we discussed. You can see the request from the contractor and our recommendation in there. Me and Mike kind of went through that in detail and just discussed this county's options and Mike's thoughts, and kind of the recommendation that I sent to Mike is kind of a reflection of those thoughts that we had.
What's the bottom line on that change order?
Change order is a reduction of $11,826.60.
11.8.
26.60.
Okay.
We're going the right way?
Go in the right direction, yeah.
You don't get many of those.
Good.
I'll move to approve the change order.
Second. Moved by Sutton, second by Fishback to approve the change order in the amount of $11,826.60. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you for the
you.
update.
Coming in.
Yeah, you bet.
Have a good day.
You too. I can stop back next.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have everything done? We got about 2 minutes before.
That's all I have.
Gary, you have anything that we just...
Well, it's Dirk, he's probably got other stuff.
So you're saying we should start early?
Yeah, we should start. We just don't have to
Okay,
go.
we're about a minute and a half early. Dirk, are you around, or I seen you come by?
Morning.
Morning, Dirk.
We're gonna put you on early so we
We're done on
can stay on
time.
I need all of my time for preparation. I just have it's just the documents, part of the big bridge program. Is the first time we've gone through the process, or that we got this far, so that's good. It's for the Hall Pit Bridge, and it's just utility clearance. That's one of the county's responsibilities in the big program, is we have to clear all the utilities ourselves. So, no big deal, but anyway, this is just saying we contacted them last week after I got the certificate, and this is just you guys acknowledging that we're going through the process here. There's a review meeting I'm going to sit in on the internet on the 30th for the bridge itself, and right now it's scheduled for the March 6th letting, which means it'll be built in 19. So once we're this far, unless what happens at the end of the month turns out to be a complete disaster, it should stay on that schedule. So, very good. Northern Electric and CenturyLink are the two that were listed on there, just for the record.
Do you need a motion to sign that? I just move it.
Second.
Moved by Kipling, second by Sutton, to authorize the chair to sign the utility certificate. Is that what it's called?
Yep. So all the little
Okay.
things that prevented us from doing that bridge this year have been worked out, and
Well, in theory,
So far?
everything that we can control has been. The back and forth with the consultant and the DOT, it's not uncommon, you know, that you go back and forth. I just wish it would be a little more expedited, you know what I mean? So, But yeah, as far as all that goes, it looks like it'll be in the March letting, so.
Okay.
Good deal. All in favor of the chair signing the certificate?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is that all you got for us?
That's all I got for you, unless you got something else that's gonna ruin my day.
Get your snow blade done?
Yep. You know, we already plowed snow,
That's right.
I had to go back and look at the calendar, but there was a 2-day difference between chip sealing and plowing snow this year, so that was a little less than ideal, but that's how it worked out.
some ice on Friday.
Yeah. Yep.
What?
No
I
problem,
heard
right?
her.
Richmond Bridge detour, that's gonna be, is that gonna be
Yep.
for the winter,
It'll be, I actually got to run out there when I leave here, just kind of see where, because we weren't around yesterday and the contractor was working, but my expectation is that we have that probably real close to being open by the end of the week.
or? Okay.
I'm hoping. But there's nothing that makes me think we won't, so.
Sounds good.
Good deal. All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Dirk.
Have a great day.
You too. Are you going to Millbank on Thursday?
Oh, yeah, I am.
You want a carpool?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just send me an email or something.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we can do whatever. It's
I have,
Millbank, so-
Millbank, yep.
Dwayne, Gary, Dirk, and Roberta down, and I
Okay.
RSVP'd.
Okay.
Already. Okay.
I'll check with Roberta if she wants to ride
Yeah.
with us. Okay.
Sounds good.
I have a couple minutes here.
Yes.
It's been up now for like 4 weeks.
11 o'clock.
Okay.
11?
11 a.m.
Sign, please.
That's the last one.
They're all over.
I forgot to have
Oh,
it.
that's that appeal.
They're tend to low over. Well, little guys.
We looked around northern lately and all
Look,
that
guys are wrong.
construction. Okay, what's that eastern Milwaukee school, where's that?
The guys with the in cameras,
What's that
seeing
doing
them.
for? These little kids with a bunch of.
Of course, that's teach me in the morning, because they're not,
East of
high
it?
order.
Yeah, right east of me over beyond east.
Where the soccer field
By
used to be?
by Dakota there.
They're everywhere.
I believe there's gym in the soccer field.
That's the soccer. You know?
There's some other.
And the practice field.
Well, that's the practice.
Practice field, I think
There's
there's
some stands there and stuff too.
Yeah.
though.
They spread their jeans on those roads.
I went on Dakota the other day. I
That's all.
thought, yeah, I haven't seen that.
That's the new soccer.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
Under owner?
Yeah, it'll definitely look different.
Everybody has a chance at one.
Gotta let them grow.
Yeah.
They'll tell you kids when you go down one
New football field done, but-
Have a look at it.
Yeah, I seen it come together.
More than-
Oh, the
Ready for next
It was
year.
because I haven't
No,
done anything.
no.
That's why I have problem with
By the time they demolish the old white school and
Yeah.
do everything
Are
they
they
have
building a new
to.
one there yet, or they started the new one?
They started that, they had the groundbreaking, I think last week or the
I
week
just
before.
assumed maybe they just
That's right
try
where
and-
Jerry
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I called NBC.
That
gotta
place
take
knows
care of it.
different.
Yep. And that science building literally comes right out to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so ready to go into there.
Uh,
Next item,
Just takes half a second here. I just noticed on that lease agreement for Plains Commerce, there is an alcohol permission slip. So you want that included in your motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
All right.
next item on the agenda, we have the public hearing for the NSU conduit financing economic development revenue bonds. Morning.
Morning. Good morning. Todd Meyer Henry, Kathy Hall is here from NSU Foundation. Just to give you a little overview, federal law allows 501c3 corporations to basically borrow tax exempt.
In order for them to do it, they need a conduit. The federal law requires that a governmental entity actually be the issuer and loan all the proceeds to the foundation, and then the foundation is solely responsible for paying the bonds because it passes through. So one of the requirements of federal law is that a governmental entity determine whether they believe that this type of bond issue is appropriate, and that we have a public hearing after notice, which was published 14 days or more in advance, and allow the public to either have written or verbal commenting on whether the county should. And so that's what this hearing is about. The benefit to the 501c3 is they get to borrow tax exempt instead of taxable, and after the tax code changes, that's not as beneficial as it used to be, but it's still about a 20% less interest rate, and as the interest rates go up as we see them, that gets better the higher the interest rate. So probably about 1% savings for the issuer. Now on this project, you want to describe what the project is?
Sure, and I'll hand out some materials. I heard you talking about the fields. They are on the front of this copy of the annual report. The campaign is called the Educational Impact Campaign. Oh, thank you. And it actually has 3 parts to it. The revenue bond financing is just for the first 2 parts, which are on the front of this annual report. You'll see the athletic and recreational fields. This is a combination of a soccer playing field with a pavilion, so we can now have people with real good seating at the soccer games for men's and women's soccer at Northern, also be available for other activities in the community. And then there's a football practice field. The football practice field that used to be used by Northern is now being taken up by the big, beautiful Regional Science Center. I don't know if you've had a chance to see that, but that's, again, a regional science facility, so the practice field is now over behind the soccer field complex. That's one part of this project. The other part of this project that we're looking for revenue bond financing conduit is the School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. That is now being constructed on the site of what was Jurdy Hall. A brand new facility. It's going to allow wonderful interaction between teachers at Northern State University, teaching students, and School for the Blind students. They're actually applying for a master's degree in visually handicapped teaching. One of the most unique partnerships in the whole nation. And this School for the Blind is going to help students. Right now they're all on one floor. They can't use stairs. They don't know how to practice in a lot of the more modern facilities. The old facility has maybe 2 outlets per room. So the new facility is really going to be a boon for the blind students all over the state of South Dakota. So again, we're asking for revenue bond conduit financing, so no money going in from the county, but this is all pledged from donations in the community, and the conduit financing will help with those pledges, which are 10-year pledges, so they're going out over quite a long period of time. This is a very large campaign, I think probably the largest private fundraising in the Aberdeen community's history, so we have a lot of people who are making large commitments, but they're doing it over a long period of time because they are such large commitments.
And I'll answer, these are normal questions that come up that counties and cities who do these types of borrowings ask. 1, can the county ever be forced to pay these bonds in any way? And the answer is no. State law actually expressly prohibits any funds of the county going into these bond issues. 2, if this bond issue defaults, does this affect the credit rating of the county? And the answer is no, it doesn't. When the only responsibility right now is to at least list these conduit financings on your audit, goes in the notes of how many conduits. If the rating agencies themselves don't look at these borrowings as a benefit or a detriment, and history has shown Minneapolis has had a number of them unfortunately not pay and go default. It does not affect their credit rating because the rating agencies understand that it's the 501c3's credit rating if they don't pay, not the conduit issuer. Let's see, what are the other questions that are asked? I think those are the 2 main ones. Do we have to do this? And if we do this for This 501c3 doesn't make us be required to do it for everyone. No, this is within the discretion of the governing body. It's on each entity that shows up. You get to determine whether you proceed or not proceed. What do you have to do next? Well, there's a resolution that we'd ask you to pass authorizing the bonds. Once that's passed, the public again has the ability to actually possibly refer this. I'm not quite sure whether this is administrative or legislative. Nobody's actually referred one of these since it's really not an obligation of the county. It does not affect them, but we would wait 20 days after publication before we'd close it. How the process itself works is it will, in this situation, look much like a commercial loan. It won't be a public security that will require SEC, EMA filings at the national level. This will more or less be a number of banks will look at purchasing this bond together, and it will look more like a commercial loan than it will like a typical bond issue that maybe the county would issue and sell to multiple investors through an underwriter.
So the bonds will be larger amounts and not available to the public?
Most,
Only
yes, they'll
banks
accredit investors, yes. Those that, most likely all banks.
So is there any downside to the county?
No, because we're going to reimburse all the expenses too of publication and any others that may arise.
And it doesn't affect our ability, and down the road, if we want a bond, say
No.
something comes up,
It doesn't count on your constitutional debt limit, even though you'd have to borrow a lot to hit that. Yeah, it doesn't count, other than being listed on your audit now, which is a recent requirement. Used to be entities would have all these outstanding and nobody knew what they had outstanding. Now it's, I think GASB changed it saying we'd like you to at least list them, even though it's just for informational purposes, not the fact that it works in any manner into your finances, because it doesn't. How typically it works is once you guys close the bond issue, all the documents, we issue the bonds, you get the money for the bonds, the foundation signs a note promising, mirroring the bonds, promising to pay through a loan agreement. The security for the payments will also be pledged, all the pledges, and then the minute you close it, the county assigns the whole thing to the banks, basically, and then the banks most likely deal with the foundation, and no payments ever normally go through because it's all right out of internal accounts.
Makes sense to me. It's a
Yeah,
good way to
no problem.
support Northern and not cost the taxpayers any money.
Any other questions?
Paul, you have a question?
why wouldn't the city take on this adventure before the county?
Well, normally what we like to do, go to the county, is because the city borrows more often than the county does. And there's something called bank qualification, which allows under 265 of the IRS tax code that if the city wanted to borrow money, if more than $10 million is borrowed, then they don't get bank qualification. And so what we like to do is use the county as the conduit issuer, because the counties borrow for courthouses, fairground buildings, jails, and it's on not that often of a basis because they don't do those things
Then
very often.
you're borrowing money for the northern improvements, but the blind school, you're not borrowing on that.
That's part of the foundation's aspect, and what they're doing is their goal is to support Northern, and
So then they had to replace it, they're taking on that obligation too.
just
When they had to move the blind school to build what they're building,
Mhm.
so they took on that obligation.
All with donations, so pretty big campaign, but pretty exciting.
So,
When's the goal to be completely done?
The third phase hasn't been approved yet, so that's actually going before the Board of Regents in December, and if it's approved at that level, it would go to the legislature in the next session. I think it's really contingent upon when they can start work on the School for the Blind. So the School for the Blind, the athletic fields are pretty much done. There's a little work left in the pavilion. School for the Blind should be done a year from now, so about November of 2019. And then I think the final stage, if that's approved, the athletic complex, which will be a stadium, softball fields, will be done probably by fall of 2021.
So it's 4 phases.
Yes, actually 3. Athletic and rec field, School for the Blind, and then the athletic complex.
Gotcha.
Taking down the School for the Blind, I guess, is part of the 4th one.
Okay.
Well, the School for the Blind definitely needs an update. If anybody's been in that building and looked at it, it's new. And it's a good opportunity for them to advance for their education over there.
So, but you're taking on the total financial responsibility of your organization of all of it.
Yes,
The Board of Regents says, they're just approving it and watching you, but not financing it.
that's correct. We actually have to provide a letter of commitment to them and to the legislature saying the NSU Foundation is responsible for the cost of this project.
And since it's their land,
Right, I
between the
understand.
state of South Dakota, they have to approve
You have to approve it, yeah.
anybody building on their land.
If you're going to destroy it, replace it, whatever.
I would move it.
I'll second it.
Moved by Mishrak, second by Sutton, to authorize Resolution 6618. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The roll call.
Okay. Motion carries.
Thanks for the information.
luck.
Good luck.
Thank
very
you.
much. We appreciate your support.
You bet. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate you coming up.
You betcha.
Okay, why don't you
Extra
sign,
copies, but anybody
doesn't
else?
matter,
I would say so.
Great.
sign
Thank
2
you.
of them.
You don't want any more copies?
Thank you. And then
Have a
I'll...
good day.
Thank you.
Maxine, you can just mail it, or you want me to wait?
Second, I'll have it here. Can you take a pencil?
I know she was checking
Thank you.
into it, but she left before she over the other side.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you coming.
Do whatever you can for Dirk to get that road done up there, that Hall's Crossing done.
It was supposed to be done this year. He just
We're-
had a
we're-
lot of
I
engineering.
tell people in town, especially north edge of town, that with our bean plant being ready to open in spring, this could be harvest time 300 days a year. Harvest time. I mean, full blown harvest time. 12 hours a day. I mean,
Well, once the bridge is done, it'll relieve a lot of
Oh,
pressure
yeah,
on
yeah,
14, and that's what the big thing is to get those trucks
Oh,
coming across over there.
you take 10-20% of the pressure off of 130th Street.
Yeah.
It's full already.
I know that.
We know.
It's full. I'm just, it didn't do to take the pressure off.
No.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Parking over there? No, it's gonna be fine. I got just a couple minutes here.
What? Don't, yeah.
It might be, it's not yours. Let's go over it.
I'll get this ready later, that, equalization resolution.
Okay.
I must have left my thing in my other phone. Pick that up.
Yeah. Your Bob thing?
Yeah. Never turned in, you're gonna charge me.
Did you get a new one? New phone? Or
Oh,
you
yeah, I
covered?
told you, remember I told you I did that
Oh,
when I
that's
came.
right, 'cause you got...
I don't know what it did on me.
I was trying to figure out how to...
Next item on our agenda, we have Russ Olson and Dave Schlosser, Legislative Audit, Closing Audit Conference. Dave and Russ?
Morning.
Morning, Russ. Good morning. Morning, Dave. How are you?
Good.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I am Russ Olson. I'm the audit manager with the Department of Legislative Audit. With me today is Dave Schlosser, who is the auditor in charge of the Brown County Audit. We're going to basically start this with a discussion of our closing of the 2017 audit. Dave has basically put together a management letter, which is the summary of some of the findings, and he'll basically go through and discuss that and the results of the audit.
Okay, what we handed out here is management letter. You received the same thing in our last audit, so the first page there is all pretty fanned up. Kind of describes the internal, what significant deficiencies and material weaknesses are, that type of thing, but we can go to the second page there. Deficiencies there, just in bold there, just deficiencies noted in internal controls, which are significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. Now, there's none noted in the audit report. So there, in regards to the internal control deficiencies, there's no written findings. But we did have some internal control things there we want to bring to your attention. First thing there, the first number one there has to do with the Brown County Fair. Overall, everything went real well with the fair testing this last audit. So a lot fewer issues than last time. So there's just a couple of things here. The first bullet point there is we just recommend an overall reconciliation of show clicks, what show click shows for sales or revenue to the general ledger. Daily procedures are really well documented. You know, things that are, deposits and documentation that are turned into the treasurer's office, weekly collections, that type of thing, that's well documented. But this overall thing is just assurance that, everything was turned over intact in total. So that's something that Derek and Maxine should try to get together at some point before year end and look at that. Because we always, if that's not done at the county level, we'd end up doing it ourselves, so. And it's something the county should do, so. And it saves a lot of time and give Derek and Maxine some time to resolve any discrepancies before we show up. The second bullet point there is just, it's basically just, kind of stay up on any invoices. And this one here had to do with Wrangler. This is my understanding, until we inquired about it, it was, they were unaware that the bill hadn't been paid. So just some things to watch for there.
So then it finally was paid that May 7th? That's the one you're talking about?
May 7th, it was the date of the invoice.
Okay.
So basically that was the day we...
Told them about it?
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much, yeah. Yeah, we never saw any earlier invoice at all.
Gotcha.
But I believe it's been collected. Maxine, I'm pretty sure, I think it has.
I think it has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just staying up on those, agreements with outside entities and that type of thing.
On a side note, we have not received the payment for the 18 fair yet.
I just made a note to check on
Yeah.
that.
The third bullet point there, and we noted similar things in past audits, just getting all the documentation with you know, what the concession people and beer garden people send in with their, with their payment. Like the clubhouse, for example, there, you know, they didn't exactly abide by the agreement. The agreement says 30% of gross sales of pop, soft drinks, and water, but what you receive is $15 a case. So there's some discrepancies there on, you know, what the agreements or contracts say with them and how it's being figured. And then, like the grandstand concessions there, you know, they turn in a recap. There's no supporting documentation. So just kind of look at that stuff a little closer.
Yeah, I will say, you know, I've been here a couple of times in front of you, the board here, discussing various things that have taken place. You know, one of the things that we'd like to see is the improvements that have been made. Each year we've seen things get better, and that's very good from our standpoint and good from your standpoint. It's a process and it takes some time sometimes, but certainly that we have seen the improvement. We like to see that. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I think that show clicks it. You know, that should work real well. I mean, it's all there. So. Number 2 there, and Paul might have a couple thoughts on this here too. It's just, you know, some of those adjustments that are being made, you know, sundial, you know, that type of thing. So we did, you know, after, this has to do with our payroll testing, so we always test payroll. But kind of what we saw there in a nutshell here is some adjustments made to you know, an individual's timesheet for various reasons, but the department we were looking at there, the department head was unaware that there were changes made by the designee to employees' timesheets. So I kind of discussed that with Paul a little bit. It's my understanding that the department head, when they approve of the department detail, they can go through each personal punch report and maybe see adjustments, but when you're dealing with that many employees in some of these departments, I think they're signing off on it without realizing there was adjustments made to employees' timesheets. So I think we talked about maybe a feature there where there could be a report or something they can pull up that shows all adjustments made. You know.
I guess what we talked about was the employee putting in a request for that change, just like a leave request, so it's documented with the log. So then you see the employees, because the employee approves his time, that way he's approved the change, and then you know who approved the change being made, and then that report going to like the department head that's actually approving the payroll. Was kind of the control we talked about.
Yeah, so it'd be nice, you know, because when we tested there, a couple of individuals, we really don't even know if those employees even are aware changes were made to their timesheet. So, you know, at least if there is changes made to their timesheet, like I say, you can have something where they can initial off on it, or, you know, that they're aware of it. So
does it already have the ability to do that? You
Yes.
just aren't doing it? Or does it need to
would just be a
be?
matter of creating a form, just like the leave, like requesting vacation or sick leave.
Okay.
Just requesting a change, like I punched in at 10, but I was here at 8, but I was busy till 10, or I forgot to punch in, so I needed a punch, which only HR can add a punch, but at least there's an audit trail for every change that's being made in the system.
Are those leave requests like archived? Because I'm having trouble finding the emergency leave requests.
Emergency leave is not right now archived at all, because it's just a different type of leave. It really has no bearing other than that.
It affects the sick leave balance, however,
Mhm.
and there's a maximum on it.
And that's what it goes into, is sick leave.
But there's a maximum of 40 hours, and how do we determine?
They've always just kept track of that at the HR department since day one, even prior to this. It's always been something that's been manually kept track of. So we can sure build it in there if that's what we need to do, but I guess I haven't seen that request. So,
Is that something that we're messing up with that?
Well,
Do
I
we
tried,
need to be overseeing that?
Sundial shows a different emergency leave balance than I show for my employees. And one employee is getting real close to the 40 hours, and I need to know which number is correct. There's no archive to tell me what was actually requested.
Does she just need to come to you and say, hey, when is...
You can certainly take a look through the year, and then it gets reset every year, so.
Would it be easier if it was on Sundial versus the manual type way, or?
Certainly, yeah.
So it's just a form you gotta put in?
it's another data field we have to put in. But it can be done, that's not a huge deal. Just needs to be done.
Well, I think it makes more sense to have some place where we can audit it at as we go, rather than go to another department, and to me, it'd be less time consuming and more economical to have the form.
No, the reason it was never put in, because emergency sick leave is not additional leave, it's just part of your sick leave. It's just emergency leave is a reason for taking leave. It's a reason, not a type of leave.
All it is a record keeping per se.
Correct. Yeah.
But it would be nice to be able to pull up and have this many employees to say, okay, this is the record, I can pull just up. And with the sick leave, it just seems like it'd be easier if the form isn't hard to develop. I mean,
It's the data field, it's not a huge deal.
Let's do it.
is everybody kind of in agreement with that, or?
Yep.
Okay, so we can have that. Is that something we want to start the first of the year then? January 1st, being that we're...
Then we'll start with all zeros, it'll be a lot easier than
Yeah.
trying to find out, it'd be less time consuming for HR to find out the balances that are actually correct.
That's kind of what my thought was, is to have it start January 1st, so we have a new year beginning. Okay. Sounds like a good idea to have it done then.
What else you got?
Well, just a couple things here is all. As indicated here on the management letter, there are no material violations of laws or anything. So again, no written findings in the audit report.
Nobody going to jail, huh?
No.
Yes.
It's full, we don't have room for them.
And then as far as immaterial violations of laws and the like, there we only had one item there to bring to your attention there. That was testing of the sheriff department records and billing and collections there. We found some discrepancies in what they were charging for fees versus what they should have been charged in accordance with state law there. So I think they've addressed that.
On ones like that, do you just pick a couple samples to look at, or you look through all of them and this was the only discrepancy?
No, it's just a sample. Oh yeah, no, there's thousands
There might
of
have been a couple out there
transactions, there's
that-
thousands
okay.
of transactions that they do. So, yeah, as far as, you know, the magnitude of that, I don't know. They might have some insight on that, but. So anyway, that's everything on the management letter, so if we can, if you have any questions, we turn it over to Russ.
Now, certainly, from the audit standpoint, you guys are going to receive non-modified opinion on your financial statements, which is the best that you can receive. Financial statements went really well, as far as the audit. Now, we've had the report kind of ready, but we delayed the release just a little bit because of some questions that came up.
we're dealing with some of these questions as a subsequent event. We have basically a period of time from the time that we complete the audit until we release the audit, and it's considered a subsequent event, a time period in which we look into things that may have taken place after the year. Some things came up, and basically I was asked to, look into a couple of situations. There were a couple of instances in which, in 2018, in which the county basically was assessed some penalties. Three primary ones, one being dealing with a late remittance to the U.S. Treasury for your withholdings in March of March 1st payroll. It was not submitted within the required time period and resulted in a penalty. Part of the process of what Dave and I did in this is we basically came in, looked at the various aspects, procedures that are being done, and basically interviewed people and talked to them to find out, okay, what are some of the issues that caused these instances. Now, in the case of the tax withholding one, all the payment information was there. It was basically submitted and was there as of March 1st. However, inadvertently, an error was made in the payment as it was not electronically made until March 13th. Discussed this with the auditor's office, and they have accepted responsibility that it was their error. It was their timing aspect. Inadvertently did not get the transmission done at that point in time. So from that standpoint, that's where that is at. Then there was an issue that dealt with a penalty that came up with the South Dakota retirement system. And there were two of them, and primarily, I guess, when we look at this, one of the things that's required, and one of the things that is normally done, the way that you currently have your guys' system set up is the fact that you have Sundial, which is a time recordation system, timesheet system basically. And then you have Incode, which is your accounting system. And part of the process that we look at a lot of times when we look at these is we don't have a direct integration or interface between Sundial and Incode. It's a manual crossover process. There's been systems that are developed that'll help to bring that over, but it's not automatic. So there's an aspect in the middle in which you have to basically take the time system, the time cards, convert it over into the accounting system to get the data in there. That can be a cumbersome process and can take some time. Now, as we looked into what was behind, the scenario that took place here, there was basically a transition of employees that took place. The new employee that came in was being trained on how things were going. Part of the process that comes about with South Dakota retirement system, it isn't just a matter of saying, okay, the employee's portion is $40,000 and the state or the employer's portion is $40,000, send $80,000. That's not what's required by statute. What the statute basically says is that all employee and employer contributions to the system and the necessary supporting data shall be transmitted by the employer at least monthly to the system. Each monthly transmission for the respective calendar month shall be completed by the 15th day of the following month. And then there's a little bit more, and it says, if any participating unit fails to deliver contributions with respect to compensation paid in any month and the necessary supporting data by the 15th day of the following month, the participating unit shall pay the system a penalty equal to 5% of the delinquent contributions. So it isn't just a matter of sending the money. You got to send the data that's behind it. There's a data set format that they request that it comes. You send in what your contributions are, but then you have to send the detail that's behind every employee. So Russ Olson's contribution taken out of his check was this much. Here's his gross salary. So all that data has to go to them with the payment. So that is part of it. Now, in this process of what was taking place in the July payroll. That was a learning process. They were learning how to do it, how to pull it together. It didn't get done necessarily in the time that was required. Once the information is completed and the data is there, it is brought to the county auditor's office from the HR department. And once they get it, they stamp it, and then basically transmit it. So in the case of the first penalty, which was the July 30th payroll, which would have been due by August 15th, the date stamp was on the 17th of August, which was a Friday, and the transmission was done on the 21st. There was basically puts you after the deadline that was required by South Dakota Retirement System. We go to the next month, into the August 30th month, and the report on that one, the data was date stamp submitted on the 17th. It was transmitted to South Dakota Retirement System on the 18th. Here's the part that kind of creates a little bit of confusion on the double penalty is you got your letter from South Dakota Retirement System that 3 days after your next month would have been due. So, as we talked with all the individuals, one of the things I was asking everybody is, did you know that there was a penalty? And everybody I talked to, nobody was aware of the penalty. So, that being one aspect of it, the first time that it went through, nobody really realized that it was at that time critical that there was a penalty behind it. And so then you get the letter, but the letter was already 3 days after the next month, and that one was late too. So from that standpoint, it comes down to, I think, a couple of major issues that I think cause or help to create this problem. One being the fact that you have a process that is not integrated and interfaced. There isn't any automatic entry, so there's a lot of detailed time entry and reconciliation that has to be done by your HR department. They need to put this together from taking it from the time system, putting it into the encode system, getting the data that's behind the payroll to be able to produce the information that's required in the file. That's one problem that I see. Now, the other part comes about with, and again, just the human element. You had a new employee that was starting. It takes time to learn all these things. And so there may have been some delays in getting the training or the understanding of the significance of the timing aspect. Like I say, when I asked the individuals, all the individuals involved, they didn't realize it. At that time when it happened the first time, they didn't realize it. Didn't realize the significance of it. And so that resulted in, basically 2 penalties. And like I say, you were informed of the first penalty the day you sent the second one. So that's just a matter of bad timing. If the letter would have came 10 days sooner, then you might have known at that point in time. But again, in both cases, when we look at the data and the submission, the necessary data to complete everything was not submitted by the deadline. And basically it comes down to various aspects that come into play. Nobody's at fault necessarily, it's just a timing aspect. It's something that took place. And we really don't look to point a finger at it happened here, it happened there. What we want to look at is, what do we do to not have this happen in the future? What do we do to make this process easier as we go forward? And that's, I think, one of the main issues that we need to take out of this is, there are some systems, looking at the current way that you're doing things right now, we had a time system that was then basically, in essence, manually entered into your accounting system. And under the current process we're working at, we now have a servicer, a third-party servicer that is involved. And again, the data goes from them to the third-party servicer and then comes back to the accountant. We took basically a human element in the middle, and we now have two. Because again, we still haven't gotten the integration. We still haven't gotten the interface. This process lends itself towards making integration such that you don't have to have the human element to recalculate. Where we used to have a difference between the calculation of sundial and encode, trying to reconcile, okay, this one's off because of this one's off because of that, we added a third element. And again, that I think is probably one of the things that we need to really concentrate on, is getting the interfaces done so that the data that's used to calculate your payroll is the data that comes into your accounting system, and it isn't a manual human element in between. That way, the error is the error. It's easier to correct that way. You don't have to say, did it happen in this system, did it happen in that system, or did it happen in this system? Bringing it across that way. Now, I had a discussion with various individuals and your third-party servicer talking about the current method of drawing the data down. They have received now the required data elements that are required by South Dakota Retirement System. Based on the individual I talked to, they're working on that to try and make sure that that is built in, so that the data would come to you. It isn't that you got to create the data would come to you, which is the way you want from that standpoint. Now, the aspect of, do you send the money and not the data? The official answer, based on the statute, is it doesn't necessarily matter. Now, would it be viewed better from retirement system if they got the money and they had to wait a couple days for that? Probably. But you know, I did talk with the chief financial officer from there, and they said the official is what it says in the law. You know, the aspect of would it be something they would consider, you know, certainly if you sent the money, But I don't think Brown County wants to get in that case, and really neither does retirement. Their whole point is they don't want this to be a continuing issue. They don't want to do this. They want to do what they can to help, so that they don't have to go through this process. So from that standpoint, I think through discussion with your HR department, with training for your auditor's office, and your integration and interface with your new service provider, I think these problems can be alleviated. I really think the integration and interface is probably critical. Anytime you take two human elements, one being a manual entry from one system to the other, another from this one to this one, and you're trying to get all three to agree, you're going to have differences. They may be minor differences, it might be rounding differences, but if we can get it such that everybody's using the same piece of information, and I think you've made some good strides. We've had a discussion with Paul and his staff. I think it's getting there. Sometimes I think it's communication. It really is. And that your service provider sounded more than willing to basically work and describe in detail what it is that comes out. And if it isn't what you need, you got to let them know. So I really think that's part of the process that needs to come out of this, is primarily working on the interface and integration, getting them to help you to get the information so it just flows right into your system. I think that will help you in the future. Other than that pretty much is the extent of what we looked at. There was one other minor penalty, and we're not even going to get into it from that standpoint. It was kind of the same issue. It was just a timing aspect. Now, what questions do you guys have for me?
Prior to us paying the penalty for the July South Dakota retirement, we had not been late prior to that.
Correct.
So someone was aware that there was a deadline.
Yes, they were probably aware there was a deadline. And again, I think that part of it they knew. They didn't know the penalty attached to it, I don't think. They didn't know the significance of being late. And I think that part of it, was an aspect. And again, that's where I think some of the switchover came into play, in that when you start a new position or when you are working towards learning the system, sometimes people do things quickly just to get it done because they need to. And you don't realize what they have to go through or understand quite as well as you should, or understand the significance of not getting it done. And so I don't know how well that was communicated in the training process. And again, I wasn't there, so I don't know specifically.
So since those two events, are we been in communication? Do we got things figured out? Do we?
I think so. We got the form this morning, we sent from RAM.
For the retirement, yep.
Okay. And they're finally doing it right?
Yeah, we got the file layout from the South Dakota Retirement. They built the file, and they're waiting for Gary, when he's on the meeting, to contact them to coordinate a test run to make sure before, so it's in on the 15th with all the data, make sure there's no errors in it. So they'll run a test, I assume, as soon as Gary calls them, and then that'll be taken care of. And we are interfaced as far as Sundial to the service provider. That's automatic. I mean, there's no human interface there. We're waiting for a few things to get the...
Sundial to RAM, you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
that's done.
It's
That's
automatic.
been done a long time. We're waiting to come back to Encode. We're waiting for some information.
There's some things we can do to automate that a little more?
It'll be totally automated. Once
Really?
this information's in there, there will be no human interface. Once the department head signs off on their payroll, once payroll is approved by the department head, it'll go to RAM, payroll will be done, and then once we get this final pieces of information to RAM, then it'll come back to Encode and come back to the budgets. Or the general ledger, I guess, is it general ledger budgets?
So
whatever
that
it is
day
on
and
that side, yeah.
that day of work of putting it all in manually will be done?
Yes.
Okay.
And that, I think, is because, you know, what is at issue right now is the fact that you're taking one system and sending it to a provider, but you got to take that same system and try to integrate it into your accounting. You're going to have differences when that happens. There might be timing aspects that happen where maybe a correction was made or something was detected where something was wrong, but it was after the information was transmitted to your provider. Well, of course, that's going to create a problem when you get to the accounting system and comparing to that. And any time you have those, there's going to be issues. And so that's why it's, again, critical from your HR and your basically provider getting the information. There's got to be that critical cutoff. At this point in time, we hit this button and the information goes to our provider, no change can be made. After that point in time, any change has to go to the next payroll will be for corrections. Because if all of a sudden you notice, oh, well, this person should have had an hour of this or an hour of that, look, you can't make that change now because you already sent the information right there. So that part needs to be really watched carefully so that the timing aspect is the same. Because there were, you know, based on when we looked at some things, reviewed some of the stuff that was put together as this was being monitored, that may have been an aspect of not knowing that critical point in time when it's this, once you hit this button, you cannot do anything. That carries forward, you got to make your corrections next month. And again, it's just like any other process. It's something new you're getting into. It's going to take a while. You have to work through the bugs. Change is never easy. It's never fun, but it's sometimes necessary. So, from that standpoint, I think getting the interface integration into your accounting system would be a very critical step, and will help
Who's
speed
doing
it.
the interface?
Which interface?
The one from
Back-
third
Back to Encode?
Yeah.
Once they have that information, it'll come in and Encode already has those import file structures built. So it's a matter of getting the information that we're waiting for, then testing it, making sure the auditor approves of everything that comes back.
So the interface is on Encode's side, correct?
Yep, and that's already, I mean, they have a standard file import.
Sure.
And it's just building the file to their import.
Okay.
So, but there's some numbers we're missing as far as accounts and due dates, and that's what we're waiting on.
And again, those are things that need to be worked out, you know, between them. And again, that's the communication part, you know, really critical. You know, the people that I talk to, everybody, you know, from their standpoint is willing, and they're more than willing to come describe what what it is that comes out of the backside of their system, so that if it isn't what you want, let them know. Not giving you the information you want, let them know. You know, from that standpoint. And again, it's not going to be something that's going to be, you know, you're going to have some glitches, even through the interface process, until you make sure that everybody's at the same page. The other thing does get down to make sure that you set a project deadline or a contact that basically communicates the changes that are necessary from a budgetary standpoint. Maybe you create a new position, okay? They got to know that, and they got to know it ahead of time, not after it already comes to it. And so, you know, set up some documentation that basically says, here's the procedural things that we do. I think that would be, you know, very beneficial from your HR standpoint, from your accounting standpoint, and from your third-party services standpoint. To basically, you know everybody's on the same page that way. So, other than that, any other questions to deal with this? Now, the amount of these penalties is not necessarily significant, materially significant to your financial position, which is normally what we look at when we disclose a subsequent event. Subsequent event disclosure is something that we put in the audit report that basically lets a reader of the financial statement know of things that took place after the opinion, or after your year end. You know, we also, you know, disclose things like, you know, potential litigation, different things like that. We certainly would open the option that if you guys would like us to disclose this as a subsequent event, that you basically were, you know, had incurred penalties, we can do that. We would not necessarily require it based on dollar amount and its significance to your financial position. So the question I have for you guys, do you care? Do you want it in there, or don't you?
What is the negative and the beneficial side of it? Is there anything either way? I mean,
Informing the public, really that's all it is.
I think the American News had already stated that there was penalties involved a month ago or so, that there was penalties involved. And I think they stated them out and stuff, so, you know, I think the public was aware of the situation.
And although I hate to say it, I don't think our audit report is widely read by many, many people. I wish it was, but that's usually not the case. So, yeah.
It'll probably be in the paper again tomorrow, also.
Well, that's encouraging that it's interfaceable, because a month ago I was under the impression that we couldn't get the RAM and Sundial into Encode without tens of thousands of dollars of work from them. So
We discussed that last February when you decided to go to RAM.
well,
But either way, it would be interfaced to Encode.
okay. Well, do you have a deadline that you're comfortable with? So when?
Once we get the account numbers and stuff, we can start testing.
Okay.
That's what we're waiting on. Deadlines and account numbers, I think. I sent an email last week, again, requesting that again.
Now, from that standpoint, you know, and again, knowing this, having discussion with this servicer, basically Encode has a chart of account system.
Correct.
These people are trained people who understand accounting very, very well. And so from that standpoint, just provide them, you know, rather than pick and choose, say, here it is, and I got a feeling they'll be able to pick it out pretty quick. What's necessary from their standpoint, what's necessary from your standpoint. So certainly I would encourage you to discuss that with them. Okay, here's just the account structure, which is really what they need. And they, you know, like I said, they're used to dealing with numerous systems, so they probably have an understanding with normal systems. So, but anything, you know, if there's anything question-wise that they have, you know, of us, we kind of set up structure. You guys set it up for your system. But if they have questions of why this, what's that, we can certainly help you. Anything else?
Sounds good.
That's all we have for you. We want to thank you guys very much for the opportunity to come and discuss these things with you. We will be completing the report. We have a few, you know, follow-up things we're going to take care of here today. And the report is sitting there out in Pier. I don't know if it's totally ready to be hitting the button, but it'll be out very shortly.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Larry, you have anything?
Remember last year, right before they, you write that letter from the beginning of the invitation. I need something that says
I'd make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss contracts, please.
About that.
Second.
We have a motion by Sutton, second by Kempley, to go into executive session to discuss contracts. All in favor?
Aye. But I need a 1 minute break.
We are in exec. Exec, no action as a result. Anything else to come before the commission?
I think based on the advice of legislative audit, we need to put together a procedural timeline so that everybody knows that if something isn't here on a specific date, then it's their responsibility to reach out to here to figure out where it is, so that, I mean, with the procedural timeline, everybody knows that this is due on the 10th, and this is due on the 12th, and this is due on the 15th, and if it's not there, then that triggers the communication that they were talking about, because right now, they're just sitting there, oh, we don't have it, so we can't do anything about it, so.
Well, and we have our department head this afternoon, or this morning at 11, I guess that's something we'll bring up, is we have to probably create a procedure for the time frames of penalties, and everybody's on the same page, and there's no reason that if it's due the 15th, somebody needs to start looking on the 12th or 13th, where's it at?
That just puts the responsibility of the responsible party, the payer or whoever, that they need to reach out and get the information they need, not just say, well, I didn't have it, so I couldn't do anything about it. Just my opinion.
Yeah, let's
Well,
do
that's how we
that.
can bring up at the department head meeting at 11, we'll definitely discuss that.
Move adjourned.
Second.
Moved by Fishback, second by Kempley to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned.